Look around the room you're in right now and try to prove to me that you are actually awake. You can knock on the desk, feel the temperature of the air, and listen to the hum of the background noise. But you've experienced those exact same sensations in dreams that felt completely solid right up until the second you opened your eyes. A philosophical epic written in 10th century Kashmir, known as the Mokṣopāya, argues that you actually cannot prove you are awake. According to this text, human existence alternates between only two modes of being: deep, dreamless sleep and dreaming. Our normal daily reality is categorized by the text as a wakeful dream. It feels continuous simply because we are deeply habituated to it. We wake up, remember who we are, and expect the floor to hold our weight. That mental repetition, day after day, creates a dense cognitive loop, projecting an illusion of permanence. If our baseline experience of life is just a shared, sustained dream, the physical laws we rely on, gravity, mass, entropy, lose their objective footing. They aren't fixed rules governing a material universe. They're just the temporary internal logic of the current dream. The text traces this entire projection back to what it calls the seed state of wakefulness. Before a universe takes shape, pure, empty consciousness experiences a spontaneous ripple. It forms a sudden, arbitrary distinction between I, the observer, and this, the object being observed. That single fracture generates the entire illusion. Accepting the premise that the screen in front of you, the chair beneath you, and the history of the world are nothing more than a prolonged hallucination leaves a massive intellectual void. If nothing is materially real, what exactly is happening out there in the cosmos? To answer that, the Mokṣopāya strips away the two most basic containers we use to make sense of the universe, space and time. It rejects the idea that these are continuous, independent forces ticking away in the background, dictating how objects move and decay. Instead, the text defines both space and time as sankalpa. This is a Sanskrit term for a mental configuration or an imaginative projection. They are mechanisms generated entirely by the observer to give structure to their own experience. The text offers a vision of time where it manipulates the sun and the moon as if they were children's toys. This version of time effortlessly creates, crushes, and dissolves entire eons and thousands of worlds, all while remaining completely unbothered by the destruction. Because time is a mental construct, it is highly elastic. The Mokṣopāya insists the duration of a billion-year cosmic cycle can be experienced within a single subjective fraction of a second inside a single mind. Space and time do not hold reality together. They are simply the shifting, highly malleable architecture that our consciousness builds to house its own waking dream. That architecture is built on Citakasha, the infinite space of pure, undivided consciousness. It is entirely empty, yet it acts as the ultimate witness and the medium where every illusion takes place. Within this Citakasha, millions of entire universes appear and disappear, floating like countless particles of light or tiny specks of dust caught in a sunbeam. Scale is completely irrelevant. Zoom in on a molecule of air or a solid rock, and you find infinite worlds expanding inward forever. Because these universes are consciousness, not matter, countless worlds occupy the exact same coordinates simultaneously, completely unaware of their neighbors. Physical borders, limits, and size are total illusions. Location itself is a mental construct. In the framework of the Mokṣopāya, everything exists everywhere, all at once. To understand how extreme this idea was, we have to look at the dominant Indian philosophy of the era, Advaita Vedanta. Advaita uses a famous metaphor. You mistakenly think a dark rope is a snake. The snake is an illusion, but the real rope remains. The Mokṣopāya completely rejects the rope. It argues for absolute non-existence. The world is an empty void projecting a self-luminous gleam. It also challenges Kashmir Shaism, which taught that the material world is real, intentionally projected by a divine creator. The Mokṣopāya insists there is no divine creator building physical objects. Structural similarities exist between these ideas, and the Buddhist school of Yogacara, which argued that all perceived reality is merely the mind. However, the Mokṣopāya frames these concepts entirely inside traditional Brahminical stories, using familiar Hindu sages rather than Buddhist terminology. This leaves the text in a solitary, radical lane of history. It functions as a rigorous, unforgiving science of absolute illusion, discarding theological explanations of a creator god in favor of a radical philosophical isolation. If there's no creator and no material universe, we must explain the intricate, seemingly logical sequence of events that make up our lives. The text answers this using the ancient Sanskrit metaphor of Kāla. Imagine a crow flying through the sky and alighting on the branch of a tall coconut palm. At that exact millisecond, a heavy, ripe coconut snaps off the tree and plummets to the ground. To anyone watching, it looks like the crow caused the coconut to fall, but in reality, the two events are entirely uncaused, independent coincidences. The Mokṣopāya applies this to the entire cosmos. The appearance of the universe is a Kāla event, a spontaneous, uncaused vibration within consciousness, free of any creator's design or inescapable fate. Things just happen to appear together, and our minds furiously stitch them into a story of cause and effect. The text employs this deconstruction of logic as a psychological wedge. It aims to sever the reader's reliance on mental conditioning, anxiety, and worldly attachments by demonstrating that their reality is logically impossible. Recognizing the absolute emptiness of the world you're dreaming up liberates you from the suffering it causes. You can still participate in your daily duties, talk to your friends, and live your life. You just know it's a dream. But this leaves us staring down a deeply uncomfortable paradox. If reality isn't fixed, if cause and effect are illusions, and if no divine architect built the stage we're standing on, what is actually governing your life? If you are generating this entire universe through a spontaneous, participatory illusion, are your actions the result of a predetermined destiny, or do you possess absolute, terrifying free will?